Hi, my name is Ian Griffin, and I would like to tell you a totally true story about what happened to me with my ex-friend stroke partners in a company called Harrington Brooks, originally Griffin Finance. Miles Grady seems to claim he was the founder of this company, which if you look back on Company's House records, which is free, you'll see prior to Harrington Brooks it was called Griffin Finance. Now I was the founder. I obviously came up with the idea, I financed it, and I went to Nick Holmes and Miles Grady, who were Nick was a salesman for a telephone company, and Miles worked in an insurance company. Yeah, I think it was CAS at the time. Um, we basically joined forces. I gave them 25% of the shares, which I thought was incredibly generous, considering I guaranteed them £50,000 a year plus a company car to leave their jobs. They were currently earning about 20, probably 28, 30,000 a year each. So I thought it was more than fair. When the company got going, it seemed to be like it was going to be a success. They came to me and said they no longer wanted to be a part of it, as, and I quote, it wasn't their bag. So, in desperation, I offered them an equal share, 33% each. Unfortunately, being naive at the time, in my late 20s, I gave them the voting right, which is 66% of the votes, which was the biggest mistake of my life. Basically, the company went on and on and on, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. They didn't hold board meetings. They changed directors. They did all sorts of things. But mainly, I think the two most upsetting parts of the whole thing. I don't really mind Miles' claims he found the company all over his YouTube Twitter sites to get credibility. I mean, that's not particularly hurtful at all. What was hurtful was one day, a few years into the company, we got VAT deregulated, which basically meant we did not have to charge the customers, or we did not have to charge or pay VAT. VAT is obviously not the company's money, it goes directly to the government. So if we were charging that, our payments were inclusive of VAT, we were charging the client VAT. Now when we got deregulated, we got a large repayment, hundreds of thousands, which I voted to give back to the clients. To be fair, I thought it was a great thing to give the clients that were struggling a holiday payment so they could catch up and we wouldn't lose clients, and it would be good PR as well. So it was just good business all round. But unfortunately, Miles and Nick at that time didn't have any money and wanted to keep it to buy new property. It was a house and a car. So they outvoted me and they kept the VAT. It was paid as dividends, and then they substituted that payment for, well, I suppose a fee, to disguise the fact we were deregulated. No clients were ever told, which I'm ashamed of. And it's been going on ever since. Harrington Brooks, All Clear Finance, etc., which other subsidiary companies they set up, do not have to pay VAT. So the charges should have come down 17.5% or 20% respectively when you joined the program. That was one thing. Then 8 years into the company, they approached me and said they wanted to keep the company small because it was they wanted to keep it as a family business and not, I wanted to go on television and do all sorts of campaigns to make the company a household name. They never wanted to, and in the end, they came to me and said, based on what we're earning, your shares are worth 1.25 million. And because the dividends I was getting were between 5 and 10,000 per month, it wasn't a massive amount of money return for the investment. So I then went to actually Baines and Ernst, my very good friend Terry O'Neill, Baines and Ernst partner and accountant, said to me, just be careful, just to save you back, go get them to sign an embarrassment clause. Now, an embarrassment clause is something that's used in business a lot. It protects shareholders from directors doing things behind shareholders' backs, i.e. knowing there's a bigger deal in the pipeline. If they were to orchestrate a refinance or sell to a venture capital company or whatever, it stops in the future. They would have to pay back that capital gain to the shareholder that sold the shares unwittingly or unknowingly about this deal. Nick personally rang me up and said he was very upset that we asked him to sign the embarrassment clause. Purely because we were friends, and how could he think that I could possibly think I would, not trust them? And I was, at the time, I felt really embarrassed and ashamed, and I withdrew the contract, which was obviously a massive mistake. So I accepted that after a week of negotiation, and basically they said, look, we know you're doing something in America, you need the money for. We just want to keep it small, we're happy the way things are, we don't want the pressure of advertising, blah, blah, blah. So I took the offer. And when we went to the bank to draw the banker's draft, Miles was in total panic because the lady behind the till said you couldn't raise it as it had gone 5 o'clock. And then I realised, or I thought, there was something very strange about his reaction to be so upset about not being able to raise the money today, because that could have null and voided the contract and would have given me another day to talk to people. In the end, the cheque was raised and I walked away. The next thing I knew, all of the newspapers, Harrington Brooks, had been sold out to a venture capital company. I think it was called Inflection, or one of them, for part of it 15 million. Now that valued my shares at considerably more, obviously. So in short, the directors of the company, which they were at the time, have a fiduciary duty to all its shareholders, especially the main shareholder, which was me, to let me know of anything going on behind closed doors. Now, this deal would have taken months to put together. You can't just put an investment deal together, or venture capital or refinance together in a matter of days. It takes months and months and months of due diligence from the other company to make sure that everything's as it should be. So I knew this deal had been done before, and that's why they came to me in such an aggressive, panicky way. But I was unfortunately a little bit poorly at the time. I was suffering from a slight depression, and wasn't too well, and the bottom line was I didn't give it the full train of thought. But when I saw the newspapers, I was devastated. And I contacted Nick and Miles. They wouldn't take my call. My mother, unwittingly to me, rang them up and said, how could you do this to my son? And they called her, Nick did, called her a silly cow to get off the phone and fight my own battles. That was the last contact we had. Then I started to sue. Using a very good lady in the city, who started legal action. But unfortunately my health went downhill rapidly, so much so that I couldn't operate. I moved home, I moved down to the south coast, and I couldn't deal with it. And it took me many years, and then obviously, as you may know in the press, a terrible tragedy happened, that I lost my girlfriend, king a leg. And the whole thing was devastating. It was something that you can't even imagine happening to you. I can't go into the details, but I can tell you that I will, without shadow, prove my innocence. I would never hit a lady. And just now, the last couple of weeks, I started off blogging about Miles and Nick and the VAT, what I call scam, not giving, when we were deregulated the VAT, they should have given the VAT back to the client. They charged that, it wasn't their money, and it should have gone back to the client. And now, legally, the paperwork may have been, loopholed in the sense that they didn't technically have to legally give the money back, but really ethically and morally it should have gone straight back to the client. It didn't, and it never did. But then they carried on charging, as I said before, which is is not good by anybody's standards, especially a chartered accountant. So not only did they take my company away from me, and go on to sell it for tens of millions in the end, setting up Pay Matters with the money, saying they had tax expertise, which I've known Miles since, you know, I was practically at school, and I've never known him work in any tax expert jurisdiction. A bookkeeper, a telesales manager, yes, but not a tax expert. Nick, as you know, was a telephone salesman and worked in debt management, so certainly hasn't got any tax expertise either. So this raised a few questions around Pay Matters. Looking at the blogs, it looks like they've, you know, obviously given some bad advice, and with tax being as it is now, the government looking into it and closing all loopholes, such as, you know, the various schemes would be running to get around tax. This probably will come to a sticky end very soon. I've set up a class action on paymatters.co.uk, which is at www.paymatterscomplaints.co.uk, where you can register your name and email, and when we have sufficient clients, around 10,000 I'm looking at, then we're going to set up a legal case to get the VAT back, and going forward for all the clients who have been involved in the Debt Matters campaigns and, you know, programs. So there you have it. The most upsetting and disturbing news that really upset me was a response from Miles when Kinga passed away, and I was you know, put in hospital / prison while this was being investigated. Was, and I quote, to a mutual friend, he said, it was the best news he'd ever had. Now, how can anybody say that about losing a death? I mean, obviously this was because I couldn't carry on the legal or civil battle case against Miles, but knowing that somebody had lost their life and calling it the best news they've ever had is monstrous. So that's why I'm so upset. That's why I wrote www.canyoutrustthem.com, which has you know, done extremely well and got back. It has millions and millions of pounds in settlements at the moment going through. Free service. We don't do anything. I don't do anything with the data. I'm not done it for profit. I've just done it to name, shame against and claim against Nick, Holmes and Miles Grady. I've not gone into their personal life, which is just as shocking, which would only upset their family. I've tried to be as professional, but obviously sometimes I've been a little bit harsh, because it's very upsetting to be betrayed at that level when you've taken two guys, next door neighbours, and given them what they've got today. They repay you by a multi-million-pound defraud. The accounts, they told me, were all false. I never saw the original accounts, only email doctored by Miles Grady himself. Everything I've said is 100% true. I've even taken 2 polygraphs, you know, which I passed all questions. I can't do much more than blog and write, and if this doesn't work over the coming months, then I will go. I have a policeman who I employ for my case, who has got a very good barrister friend who can make this criminal with what we've got, and create a criminal investigation for serious fraud, of which I believe is enough for them to go to prison. But then I'd lose my money, and I don't particularly want to see anybody go to prison. It's a terrible place. Despite Miles and Nick, what they've done, their families would suffer enormously, so I've tried not to go down that route. But people must know who they're dealing with, and Can You Trust Them and other companies alike who don't charge, do it purely and simply because they've been touched by, you know, fraud, whatever, and want to name and shame. That's what the internet's for. That's what it's being used for as well. But people like Nick and Miles want to shut that down. They want to censor Google. They want to censor all these sites, so they can't use it as a complaints item for them. And this is very wrong, because corporate power, i.e. lawyers that were used originally to stop me from making this claim from Nick and Miles, said to actually threaten my personal life. along with my professional life and business. But fortunately, libel is a very simple law. If it's true, it's not libel. And this is all true. They have to prove it's not true, and I can easily prove it is true with the witnesses I have, and basic public records will show, like Company's House, it was called Griffin Finance first. My shares were sold for 1.2, then immediately sold for, I don't know, upwards of 6-7 million, which shows they obviously something was going on. I don't know why I'm laughing, it's a bit of a shocker, but that's the story. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but that will be saved for the court. But the bottom line is that if you can believe that the founder, the financer, the person who put it all together would have his shares, for 8 years, then all of a sudden their partner come to them and say, would you like to sell your shares? We're keeping it small, we know it's a family business, I've got emails to prove this, and then immediately sell for tens of millions. I think it speaks for itself. You'd have to be you'd have to have no brain to not really understand that. So there it is, my story with Harrington Brooks, originally Griffin Finance, and my devastating last 4 years with what happened to Kinga, and obviously now I'm free, and I will now carry on and never stop until justice and Miles Grady and Nick Home come clean about their history. I don't care about them saying they've got tax expertise. I don't care even about them taking credit for Harrington Brooks when they had nothing to do with it. They were brought in as sales and bookkeepers and grew in trust and then were made directors. So, like I say, it can all be checked out, and hopefully one day this will be resolved either in the court, criminally, civilly, or maybe one day they'll say, yeah, we were bad people, we shouldn't have done that to our partner and our friend, and they will come clean and do the right thing. But until that day happens, I will be, and have done, started to take on professional, when I say the word hackers, that will be, sounds criminal, it's not, it's just intelligent people who know how to use the internet to get the voice out, bloggers, as they're referred to today. Even if it takes 10 bloggers, 10 hours a day, whatever it takes, I will do to get justice. You've got to ask yourself the question, what would you do? How would you feel if your partner and what I saw at the time as best friends, who you brought to business, who didn't have a clue, they didn't even understand the basics of setting up a business. And I was fortunate, which they used against me, to have a few other businesses that were successful, which obviously how I financed the company. And they said, we don't want you to come into the office because it looks like we work for you, and can we change the name to Harrington Brooks because we don't want people to to be undermined as if you're our boss, when I made them equal partners at 33% each. So the whole thing makes sense, it all adds up, from company's records to email to witnesses. But just don't forget, what sort of a person, one, does that to a friend who gave them the chance in the first place, but more than anything else, what sort of a person says Kinga Leg's death and me being investigated and locked up for it, and I don't know what the charges are going to be when it gets to court, I really don't know, but I do know that I've got absolutely every piece of evidence to prove my decency, that I would never hurt a lady, ever. Anyway, that's another story, but I will prove myself, and in the meantime I'll be working very hard to show people who Nick Holmes and Miles Grady. And one thing I did forget is when I did say to Nick, could you sign an embarrassment clause to say nothing's going on, because it seems all, all a bit sudden how you come to me and sell my shares. He said, "I swear on my child's life, how could you think that of me, Ian? It's really upsetting. Me and Miles are really upset that you could think we were trying to rip you off." That, as I said in my article, it was the nail in the coffin, and I just believed them, I trusted them. And to find out later it was all set up. Even my girlfriend at the time, 15 years, knew them very well, Diane Wilkinson, said to me, "Ian, it's something very strange." And of course we have Terry's partner, Baines and Ernst, who also said something very strange is going on, because it's after 8 years, all of a sudden they want to sell, they want to buy your shares, hence the embarrassment clause and everything else. So I'm sorry I'm rambling now, but it's a difficult thing to go on, to talk about it, some parts of it, but that's the truth. So you will find now Miles is blogging how Google works, the new algorithms work. You probably heard about it in the press, that the more recent, the more content will usually surpass older content. So what Miles is doing now is he's blogging about football, Rubik's cubes, accountancy, pay matters, anything. You won't use my name because that would, cause links and etc. I also saw him do an article about how he made Harrington Books successful and how he founded it, which was, I don't know, just so dishonest. It was me that did all the internet work. It was me that understands search engine optimization. Miles had never even heard of it at the time, which is what made Harrington Brooks so successful, because at the time you could buy a word like debt management or in debt for 10 pence. Now it's anything from £20 to £37, which is what Miles actually said in his article. So all I can say is, from my experience, Miles is incredibly dishonest, will do anything for money, and just be very, very careful. And even if it's in black and white, I found that sometimes it doesn't mean a thing, and you always end up in court years and years trying to get back what should have been yours, whenever it happened. So CanYouTrustThem.com has done tremendous things with his story, and within weeks it was getting 3,000 people a day going on there, using it for their own means to get their money back, naming and shaming and claiming. To this day, I think it's the only site in the world that does exactly what it says on the tin: name, shame and claim. I use an algorithm which basically, in layman's terms, connects the name of the person or the company with the complaint. So it carries it round, it pulls it round with them wherever they go on the internet. Change company name, it'll still go with them. They can't just change a company and move on again like they used to be able to. Hence why there's thousands of complaints on CanYouTrustThem.com, and it's closed down many companies, hundreds of companies, doing scams on the internet. I don't sell the data, like I said. I've not done it for any profit. In fact, it costs me money to run now. I just have a small banner advertising for the upkeep. But my main point is, Nick and Miles stole my company. They made tens of millions off it in the end. I'm very upset about the whole thing. They won't talk to me. All I get is threatening emails. So I want them to know, if they do ever watch this, that I will never ever give up. I will, if it takes 10, 20, 100 people, I will carry on and carry on and carry on till everybody knows, especially their clients, potential clients, who they are, what they're prepared to do for money. And if they can do it to me, as the founder, their friend, their neighbour, and, well, say what they said about Kinga and the situation, which I can prove all, they can do anything. So thank you. I hope you be very, very. I hope you're very, very wary now. and I hope this video comes over slightly professional, because it's been a tough time, and I've been through a lot in the last few years. It's only now where I felt my health got well enough to start this properly again. Like I say, the next step is criminal. Civil at the moment. Statute of limitations on a civil case is 7 years. Criminal doesn't have one, so I can do that anytime. I have all the files to go forward. They won't get away with it. The truth always does come out. One important thing I did do, I took a polygraph, as you know, on Kinga's case, my case with Kinga, which I passed all questions. More importantly, I offered Miles and Nick to take a polygraph. 3 simple questions. Did you do, you can see on the website, on canyoutrustthem.com, did you have a deal pending, or did you know what was going on, i.e. with a venture capital company, etc., before you bought my shares? Did you falsify accounts? Things like that. 3, 4 simple questions, yes or no. And if they said yes or no, no, and passed, I would drop my case. Even though I know they did, I know you cannot get past a polygraph. You certainly can't. Not with a good examiner like I had. And I would take that, and I would drop the case. And it gave them the chance to do it, and they turned it down and said they wouldn't get involved in that sort of thing. So there you go. Harrington Brooks, Pay Matters, Griffin Finance, all together in one little video. I hope you believe me. I honestly have told every single thing I've told you is truthful. I've not embellished anything. The facts, the figures are all totally accurate. There is a lot more, but you would not watch it because it would be too long. And pop on Company's House and just see if Miles Grady founded Harrington Brooks. See what Harrington Brooks was called before Miles came along, which is Griffin Finance. See what I sold my shares for as public record. Read the media. See what Harrington Brooks was sold for immediately at the same time, knowing that a deal like that would have taken months, if not over a year, to put together. And look into the VAT. Now, I think I've gone on enough now, but all those Harrington Brooks All Clear Finance, you are due your VAT back. You need to get together. You need to go on the website on paymatterscomplaints.co.uk, fill in your details. I think I've asked for your name, your email, maybe 3 or 4 things. It's all you need to do to start the class action to get thousands, millions of pounds back of your money. It wasn't Miles and Nick's to take. It's just terribly dishonest what went on, and what is still going on today. I think I've said it a million times, but that's it. So good luck, and I hope I can help you. And do use the website, canyoutrustthem.com. If you've been ripped off, then it does work. I mean, if you Google Miles Grady's name, you will see thousands of complaints about him, and you will see how he, especially on his images, you will see all the blogs he's tried to put up about various things to try and remove it, and he can't, because Can You Trust Them has been written in a very clever way that even with the change of algorithm of Google, has kept it standing, and Miles cannot remove what I've said. It's all true. And he can't take me to court, as you've probably noticed now, because it's not libel. It's all true. So good luck. Please use the sites. I'm sorry I've gone on for so long, but I hope it's worth it. Thank you. Goodbye.